Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I am Ben Blanquera with Rackspace Technology, the world's leading multi-cloud services provider. Today, I have the pleasure of talking to Caroline Carruthers. She's a data cheerleader, author, CEO at Carruthers and Jackson. Welcome, everyone. Good morning, Caroline.
Good morning, Ben. Thank you very much for that intro.
All right, I got to ask a question. Have you heard any horror stories about not paying attention to regulatory compliance? Come on, give us some dirt. Give us some some interesting stuff.
What I did was actually, funny enough, I was interviewed for a newspaper recently to give my opinion on the Instagram fine that happened in Europe. Now, I don't know how much this is spread across the globe, but Instagram or Meta, because of something that Instagram did and it violated children's privacy rights, were fined more than 400 million euros, which is not pocket change in anybody's category. Now, I think 400 million euros. And I know you say that and it is completely eye-watering. And they fixed the problem that it happened now. So for anybody who's from Meta or Instagram, don't shoot me, please. I'm telling everyone you fixed it. You did. But yeah, because of something they did a few years ago, they'll find 400 now. And that was basically somebody wasn't paying attention. And it shows you how simply these issues can come up. So basically what happened was a lot of children, they get involved with Instagram. They wanted to know more stats about their account. And what they were doing was flipping it over to a business account so they could get the right kind of stats and they could get interested. When they did that, it exposed their email address, potentially their telephone number to everybody on the internet. And these are 13, 14, 15-year-old children we're talking about here. So you can see how, actually, with the best will of the world, I kind of understand how it happened, but somebody wasn't on the ball to let that happen.
And it could literally be someone flicking one configuration switch. That's it.
That's it. And it's like what you do. There should have been kind of, hang on, but if we're letting children on this platform, what happens if they do that?
That's right. My gosh. Well, thank you. Imagine there's a couple of CFOs going, red flag, red flag, red flag. Let's look a little bit. Are there any regulations on the horizon that companies should be gearing for? I've heard increasing things around employee privacy, customer, different states. I mean, what kind of things are coming on the horizon?
So I think that now that the kind of regulations we've got, we're kind of used to now. I think that governments are now starting to think about regulating more with more detail. So exactly as you just said, the ones that I think are coming through first are more about employee details and how we hold data on employees with an organization, how long we can keep it for, all those kind of things. To me, I think those kind of things are pretty much an extension of what the original legislation like GDPR and CCPA were trying to do. It's just making it very specific for a category of that kind of personal data.
I see.
The ones that I don't think we spent enough time thinking about yet are about the wider parts of data and the protection of it. So, an example I would give is that a lot of people are using social media all the time. I mean, some people are fueling social media with what they're putting on. Why on earth people need every single meal they take on social media, I have no idea, but some people really, really like that kind of thing. And I'm not convinced that a lot of those people understand the value of the data or the power that they're handing across to somebody else in their stead. So I'm really keen to promote and advocate for improved data literacy, if not regulation, around people having much more control over what they can do with their own data.
Oh, if you had a sort of crystal ball and said, here's my magic cheerleader one, what would happen to drive that?
If I could wave Caroline's magic wand when it came to data, what I would actually like to focus on is education. So I would like to focus on data literacy education in schools for all children, so that actually, rather than us not solve the problem through regulation and compliance, because that should be the end of the line, what we do is focus on education and make sure that people are very aware of this. At the moment, it feels a little bit like, with the digital world, Narnia's out there and all the wardrobe doors are open. and our kids are walking back and forward through the wardrobe, and we're kind of ignoring this fact. So
Yeah.
we need to teach them how to be safe in Narnia.
Yeah, that's a really sort of good point. Just acknowledging that your digital footprint and the data about you is you,
Exactly.
and it's sitting out there.
And what it can tell people and what they can extrapolate from the information that you're putting out there. In some cases, I think they know me better than me.
I think they do. I mean, I'm sure. Well, the amount of data out there and the patterns that we all have unconsciously, I mean, it's predictive. Which this is a great segue. This is a great segue to, the use of that data and about data ethics,
Yes.
right? Let's talk about that a little bit, Caroline. Oh my God.
I could talk about data ethics all day long.
Let's talk about data ethics. So, I mean, like, what does that mean for a CDO? Why does that matter?
Well, I think because I've had so many conversations about data ethics recently, and I don't know about you, Ben,
Yeah.
but in some of them, I think we're trying to confuse ourselves. I mean, us slot and data never do this, right? We never just give ourselves new words to think about. But when it comes to data ethics, data ethics is just a branch of ethics, and ethics is about doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, we should be focused on doing the right thing. That shouldn't be hard, and I don't want us to be overcomplicating it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the really key point, I think, when it comes to ethics, is ethics is a reflection of where we as a society are at any one point in time.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by that is our acceptance of good behavior changes over time. So I'll flip back to the 1970s here for a second. I'll do the Scooby-Doo dance, and you
All
can
right.
flip back to the 1970s, and the adverts on TV and in newspapers that featured women. I mean, you look at some of those adverts now, and there's adverts of women lying on the floor with a man's shoe on their head, or
Oh.
she's literally chained to the kitchen sink.
Mm-hmm.
All those kind of things weren't just acceptable at the time. We found them funny. Now, fast forward to the 2022s, and we find that quite abhorrent, or at least I find that quite abhorrent. I'm sure you do too.
Oh my God. It's terrible. I have
But
4 daughters. This is terrible.
Exactly. But it just goes to show how far our attitudes in one specific area have changed over a matter of about 50 years. That's somebody's lifetime. And, in some cases, you can imagine how far, and hopefully it will go again in another 50 years. So the data ethics, if we'd created data ethics in the 1970s, they would not be valid now.
That's okay. So it's an ongoing evolution based on what society is acceptable.
Exactly. So again, it's another one of those, it's not a project to be completed. It is putting the right mechanisms in place to check your organization is always doing the right thing about, and the other side of data ethics, which I think is really important, is to check for the unintended consequences. Because in a lot of cases, and the problems that I've seen happen around data ethics aren't because somebody intended to do something wrong. It's because they, with the best will in the world, maybe didn't realize the full extent of what was going to happen when they did something. So making sure that you think about the intended, but also the unintended consequences, I think is incredibly important when it comes to data ethics.
Yeah, I've heard if we extend that to the ethics associated with algorithms. Let's go down that road a little bit.
Happy to do that. I know. Do you see? I'm getting excited now. And I think if we're going to talk about that, Ben, then we also have to talk about the bias and data sets that we're using. Because
let's bring it.
Let's open it right up.
Let's open it right. Let's talk about that. That gets really, really interesting here.
It does get fascinating because I'm not saying that the data is not valid, but we know that there are inherent problems based on historical data sets, and whether that's to do with female data, whether that's race data, LGBT data, you know that in the past, the data we collected is not fit for the data ethics that we currently deem as acceptable. That doesn't mean the data isn't useful to us. It just means that we have to be aware of the bias in it to be able to usefully use it, and not successful, and to not carry that bias forward unintentionally because we didn't realize it was there in the data in the first place. So
and to have sort of the presence, because it goes back to earlier, you said, where's your source data? Just fundamentally understanding what your source data is, and then what the biases are because of your source data.
Yeah.
Right. And if I go to a primary school and ask, a standard population of 30 people, what would you like for lunch? And they say chicken nuggets. And then we start, but it's a statistically valid study, right?
Exactly.
I
But
have
you ask a
enough
bunch
data
of
points.
50-year-olds.
That's right. I get salad.
I think we have to eat salad. I think we get to the point of having to eat salad, Ben.
But yes, to me, it is, I talk to a lot, statisticians, like you can make statistics do anything you want. What do you want it to say?
It's like the Mark Twain quote, which I use all the time. So I think it's fantastic. Statistics, 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 and damn lies. It just, you can literally use it any which way you want.
Well, I think like, what's that? The false precision, this notion of false precision.
And as data people, we should be trying to get to the real root of the problem. And we started the conversation about, getting to the heart of the problem and really solving the root of it.
Yeah.
When it comes to the data sets, we should be understanding all of these things about the data that we're using. And that's even before you get into the ethical implications of AI, because if you don't understand the data that's going in, how on earth have you got any clue about what's coming out of the algorithms?
Yeah.
And for me, the whole idea of using data, it's about making us better, making us, the better human beings that we can be.
Right.
The algorithm isn't there to replace our intelligence. It's about helping us do more and better.
Do more and
So
better.
we need to understand, the data that goes into those algorithms, but also to understand what they're trying to do. And if that's a true reflection of the ethics that we hold at any one point in time.
It's been fantastic. And we've got a conference coming out. You got to come out here. I've got a big conference in July. It's a Data Connect, and it's focused on, it started out with a Women in Analytics conference. And
amazing. I would love to.
Come on out to this side of the pond.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you, Caroline, for joining me today. Please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews. It's been fabulous.